This is like a little preview, very on the nose. Thank you, subconscious. Priorities, dude. Hi, I'm Sock Marionette, doing business as Bargain Counter Argument, and welcome to day one of my countdown to Valentine's Day. Now, technically, if it's a countdown, this would be day 14, and Valentine's Day would be day 1, but no, just no, that's too confusing. So I'm going to just stick with today is day 1, and Valentine's Day is day 14. So this is the first day of this project. I'm going to be hoping to vlog every single day and read a different category romance every single day. That is to say, a different book from different category romance lines. There are going to be some exceptions going along for like flip through. There are going to be some exceptions going along, like for a flip through Friday. That's going to be a little different, but basically that's what the plan is. I'm hoping other people will join this open collab, not necessarily reading a book a day, certainly, not even necessarily doing a video a day, just counting down to Valentine's Day in whatever way you want, and use the hashtag countdowntovalentines. My most direct collaborator is Sarah of Reading Category Romance, who's got her own spin on this. She will be not reading a book a day because she's got too much stuff going on. She will be, however, spotlighting a different category romance that features the word Valentine or Valentines in the title. So that'll be fun. And the other thing that she and I and other people will be doing as well is getting into Meet Cute, which is a Countdown to Valentine's Day book. It has 14 short stories by 14 different authors. I believe they're YA, and each day is sealed. You can see there's a seal, and the idea is you cut the seal each day and read a book, kind of like an advent calendar, only Countdown to Valentine's Day. So that is how I am going to start. I can find my glasses. If you're new here, reading glasses, looking for my reading glasses is kind of an ongoing theme. A leitmotif, if you will. By the way, this is my Valentine's Day tree. It's my Christmas tree that I keep up in my bedroom year-round and change the decorations seasonally. So for the next few weeks, it's going to be the Valentine's Day tree. I promised to debut it today, and I will. This is like a little preview, and I'll do like a full clip of the whole thing later today. Okay, so let's see. I'll see if I can get this. Oh, okay, that actually opened very easily when I had the Heart for Christmas Advent book. It could sometimes be a bit of a challenge to get to the chapters. Okay, so the first one is, oh, and here's the design. Each day has a different design. We've got heart-shaped lollipops or heart kebabs, depending on how bloodthirsty you feel. And today we have Siege Etiquette by Katie Coutinho, Cotugno. And so I am going to read that now. Okay, so that was the first story in Meet Cute. It's not exactly a romance. It's more like a slice of life kind of moment in time encounter, which I liked that. I wasn't a big fan of it being told in the second person point of view. So it's like, you do this, you do that, you do the other thing. but I did enjoy it, so that was pretty good. Oh, I just smacked myself in the face with my own book. I'd like to say that's the first time I've ever done that, but that would be a big fat lie. Okay, next up, I am going to be reading Betty Neels, the Pineapple Girl. Betty Neels. Betty Neels was born in 1910, and during World War II, she was a nurse, and she ended up marrying a Dutch dude and living in the Netherlands for about 10 years after the war. And then they moved back to the UK, or she moved back to the UK, I'm not entirely sure. She started writing in publishing her first book in 1969, so she would have been almost 60, and then she continued writing up to just before she died in 2001. So she lived to be 90, which is a nice run. And I wish I remember where I read this about Betty Neels. It was somewhere online, it was on somebody's blog, and they were talking about how the emphasis that Betty Neels and other writers of Mills and Boon, which were republished in North America as Harlequin, had a big emphasis on food and clothing and so on. And this person was speculating that it was because rationing in the UK continued long after the war of foodstuffs, shoes, clothes. And so there was very much like just loving descriptions of food that you could enjoy again. Which would have, although Betty Neels didn't start publishing until 1969, she still would have had memories of those years because she was an adult during that time. So Pineapple Girl was originally published by Mills and Boon in 1977 and republished in North America by Harlequin in 1978. As I said, this is a reissue from 2005. I will put up the original Mills and Boon cover here and the original Harlequin cover here. Harlequin covers kind of changed over the years. This is not typical for a current Harlequin cover either. They changed over the years, and I'll be getting into that later on during this project, like later on in the countdown, not later on in this video. And now this is the end of this clip, and I will read this book and update you about halfway through. And I will have an insert of B-roll of the tree. It's a few hours later. It's just about 1:30. I started, I think, at around 11:30, so it's only been a couple of hours, really. I didn't give a timestamp. I didn't talk about the weather. It's windy and cold today. The additional snowfall that's supposed to be happening for a lot of North America is not going to be happening here, supposedly. And when I woke up this morning, the earworm of the day was Dreamboat Annie by Heart. Very on the nose. Thank you, subconscious. I was so eager after I read the first story in Meet Cute. I was so eager to get to Pineapple Girl by Betty Neels that I didn't read the summary or talk about Harlequin Romance. Harlequin is a North American publisher headquartered in Don Mills, Ontario, which is Greater Toronto area. And they started publishing Mills and Boon romance fiction in the mid to late 50s, I think, 1950s. Mills and Boon had been around since around 1908, and they published a lot of popular fiction, and Harlequin decided to start republishing their romance fiction, which in the beginning was largely medical settings, because that would be a profession where women would A, be participating in that profession, largely as nurses, and B, would be likely to meet eligible men, as opposed to being, for example, school teachers, where most of the men they would meet would be married with children and, not suitable romance partners. So this is the synopsis. They seemed fated to meet. It was a pineapple given to her by a grateful patient that led Eloise Bennett to meeting the Dutch doctor Timon van Zylst. Shortly after that, Eloise went to Holland to nurse a patient, and there was Dr. van Zylst again. Thrown into his company, Eloise soon realized that she loved him, but Timon was going to marry the beautiful Liska, So why would he look twice at Eloise? And now I'm halfway through, and that's basically what the story is doing. It turns out that the patient she goes to the Netherlands to care for is a old friend of her mother's, Eloise's mother's. And so she's like, oh, I just had this operation and I'd like somebody to help me recover, and just come. You won't have to do much, it'll just be like a holiday for you. And so Eloise goes, because that sounds pretty good to her. Of course, it turns out that Deborah, the woman she's caring for, had kind of, to other people, was downplaying her illness. She actually had cancer, and the operation she had was kind of just to, more like palliative care. It was, the idea was to like hopefully make her a little more pain-free and a little more energetic for the last few months of her life. And so she tells Eloise this, and Eloise is like, okay. And so she goes, and she's having a good time in the Netherlands, but there is this overshadow that, she's growing to enjoy Deborah's company and Deborah's husband's company. They try to set her up with their son, but the son's a real dud. And Eloise is like, how could these two lovely people have such a horrible son? Anyway, so and since Dr. Van Zylst is caring for Deborah as well as her physician, she and Timon get to know each other, and they've got a cordial relationship. He's kind of condescending to her, but we've established that she's 23 and he's 37, so that kind of makes sense. And he gives her compliments, but they're kind of that, you're not like other women. You're not like other girls. I'm sorry. You're not like other girls. Like, he wants to make sure both of them want to make sure she remembers how to drive, because she hasn't driven in a while because she's been living in London and you don't need to. And so he takes her out in his car and he's like, okay, why don't you try driving my car, and we'll make sure that you know what you're doing, and then you can drive around, no problem. So she does, and she's a little rusty at first, but she gets the hang of it pretty quickly. But he's like, when she's finished driving, he's like, well, other females get in the car and they just go a few yards and then throw their hands up in the air and say they can't possibly. And it's like, oh, come on, let's not do the other, not like other girls, not like other females even. And there's a couple of other times where he's like telling her, well, you're going to be out in the country. There's not going to be a lot of nightlife. Just like, I like being out in the country. That's where I grew up. I don't like living in the city. And he's like, oh, well, you're not like other girls. And it's like, oh, come on, dude. So, but basically he does respect her professionalism and so on. And it's pretty clear to the reader. I mean, like, she actually says at one point, this Liska lady, she kind of shows up where Eloise wasn't expecting her to be. And the narrator, just like third person narration, says, yeah, Eloise didn't notice the expression on Timon's face either, because he was like, apparently he wasn't expecting to see this Liska lady there and was not too happy to see her, but Eloise didn't notice that, but we are told that. So we're definitely getting the impression that she's worried because she thinks of herself as being rather plain and boring and not, not like other girls, but in a bad way. And we get the impression that Timon is also into her. So, so I'm halfway through, and unfortunately, Deborah has died, and she's getting ready to go back to the UK. Meanwhile, off page, her mother, when she left London to go to the Netherlands to look after Deborah, her mother went back to the village where they had lived up until recently, and to visit a friend. And while she was doing that, she met a guy she used to know, and they kind of are having a little romance. So that's nice. So it's setting it up so that her mother can move back to the village she likes, and Eloise will be free to move to the Netherlands once Timon gets his act together and asks her to marry him, or however that's going to ensue. It's a very gentle story. I'm enjoying it a lot. There is description of food and clothing. They go shopping, and there's a lot of like, oh, look at the clothing. Look at how much clothing there is, and so on. And so that's quite lovely as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. This is a very Harlequin Romance, as opposed to some of their other lines, is very closed door, especially Harlequin Romance from, really this prior to around the mid-90s or so, which is when they had to kind of like acknowledge some of the realities about how men and women relate to each other now. And so it's very closed door. Well, actually, I'd say it's closed door, except that I realize that's not accurate because she's there isn't any action so far. They've just had a lot of conversations and worked together on this professional project of looking after Deborah. And at one point, he kissed her. He gave her a closed mouth kiss on the lips, and she was like, "But they don't talk about it or anything." She's like, "What the heck was that? I don't know." She just kind of pushes it from her mind because they're under a lot of stress and so on. And she thinks he was just comforting her because, you know, she was tired and kind of dragged out. So, you know, which is fine. It's not disrespectful in any way. So if you are spice averse, this is definitely the author and the category line for you. So, yeah, I just finished a lunch. We had a salad and stuffed bread. It was chicken bacon ranch stuffed bread, which is very nice. We heated it in the toaster oven, and it was a nice warm lunch on a cold day. So I'm going to go back and finish this book and then update you as events warrant. Okay, it's about an hour later, and I finished this book, Pineapple Girl by Betty Neels, and right after I recorded the last clip, this took a turn for the weird. Niska, the girl that Timon was interested in, she comes around and she's a jerk to what's her pickle, Pineapple Girl, Eloise, many times. Eloise goes back to the UK. She's going back to her job at the hospital in London, and then Timon shows up and says, you know, Deborah's widower is not doing too well. He's just like depressed and he wants somebody to talk to, and nobody wants to talk to him about his dead wife because they all think it's morbid. And he says, but it might be nice if you could go kind of look after him for a couple of weeks. So she does that, and stuff happens, and Liska continues to be mean to Eloise, and Timon's acting kind of weird. I don't think Betty Neels intended for it to come across like this, but it's like this 37-year-old man has Liska and Eloise on a string, and he's just kind of jerking them around. And finally, she kind of gets tired of it, so she goes back to the UK. She finds a job out in the country, a temp job out in the country. So she goes out there. He tracks her down, and he seems to be astonished that she didn't want to stick around to be jerked around by him. And he's like, well, maybe I should have told you what I was thinking, which is that he wanted to marry her. And he says, but I couldn't tell you I loved you until after I had talked to Liska and made it clear that I wasn't going to be with her. And it's like, priorities, dude. Why keep Eloise in the dark? I mean, all these other people, and he's calling her mother and he's calling her boss, and he's, you know, putting all this stuff together so that he can come and plead his case to her, and nobody's telling her anything. And then the explanation is like 2 paragraphs long. Oh, well, you know, I wanted to marry you, but I had to break up with Liska, and I had to do that in person with her, and I had to just like keep you completely in the dark while I was doing that for reasons, I guess, and never really explained. And she's like, oh, okay, let's get married then. End of story. So it had greater potential that wasn't really realized. So, yeah. So that ended up being kind of a disappointment after a strong start. So, yeah. So, but, you know, that's kind of what you get with these old school category romances. And I mean, and he wasn't, other than like jerking people around and keeping her in the dark because of some sort of strange sense of honor, I guess, he really wasn't as bad as some of these guys are. So that was that. And that is my first day of reading a category romance and my meet cute story. Counting down or up to Valentine's Day. I'm hoping I kind of got a late start because I didn't even get out of bed until it was almost 11 when I got up. I'm hoping that I can go to bed a little earlier and get up a little earlier because that's kind of what I prefer anyway. So I'll see what I can do about that. I will update you tomorrow when I know what happened there. Your guess is as good as mine for now. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. And I hope you have a good day. Or night.
Bye.